about crochet socks. So I'm excited.
I didn't pull out the ones that I have made because I've made like super bulky house socks, which is not going to demonstrate when you compare it to fingering weight socks. I'm like, those are wildly different classifications of yarn. Let's not do that.
Well, this is going to be Jocelyn.
Yep, I'm here.
So I'm just going to get my screen set up here.
Betcha.
So I can see the chat.
Yeah, that'll be helpful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit here drinking my decaf coffee.
Well, so we were just chatting a couple seconds ago, and I'm not sure if that caught on the live or not, but I know nothing about crocheted socks.
Totally fair.
Oh, Susanna's here.
Hey, Susanna.
All right, so welcome everybody. My guest on the Thursday nights, as always, is the lovely Jocelyn.
It's become our thing, hasn't it?
It has become a thing. I like this thing.
I like this thing too. I miss chatting with you every week because we only are supposed to like text, like stop in once a month, and it's like the middle of the month. I'm like, oh, it's not time yet.
I know.
I mean, I start panicking because I usually haven't started any of the stuff I've said I was going to work on, but
I am so happy to hear you say that because I haven't worked on any of mine either.
I think I mentioned it last week's podcast. I was like, so we're like at the 15th of the month and I haven't even picked up the sweater I said I wanted to finish this month. I'm doing great.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know what? I am right there with you. So it's not a problem. So, but tonight we're not talking about finishes tonight because we're talking about brand new stuff. So oh my gosh.
Same problem. We both just start stuff instead of finishing it.
I know. I think this is why we get along so well, right? It's just like start everything. Finishing is optional. But Easter weekend, the Fiber Friends did the sock knitting challenge, which was, I think, a huge success.
Oh, everybody, so much fun. We got Diana to participate. Diana never participates unless I really bully her. I mean, she is such a nice girlfriend. Poor girl puts up with a lot.
We had so much fun. And this is where this night came out of that sock knitting challenge because you were saying, you were debating, what will I do for the challenge? Will I knit a sock or will I crochet a sock?
Yeah.
And then somebody left a comment and they're like, crocheted sock, that would be super fun. I'd love to know more about crocheted socks. And that's all it took.
Background noise brought to you by kittens playing with their toys.
That's all right.
Always playing at the wrong moment. She just had dinner, so we're full of energy. So I don't know what you guys will hear, but you might hear something. I don't know what the new microphone picks up yet.
Well, we will find. I can't hear her.
I can, but I can hear her when she's playing in the bedroom, which is like many feet that way. Oh.
So we've got Lisa's here from Australia joining us. Hi, Lisa.
Holy, that's a time difference.
And our friend Susanna and Sabrina.
Excellent.
And Susie. These are all names that I recognize. So hi, ladies. I'm so glad that you're joining us.
All names I talk with on Friday nights in the chat.
That's right.
What are you doing, monster?
So crocheted socks is our topic for tonight. And I kind of laughed when we said we would do this because I have no idea what I'm going to contribute to this conversation because I know nothing.
Honestly, it's probably going to be questions because there'll be a lot of things that I won't consider somebody would ask because it's just something I do.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. Some people will have some questions about what they would like. And I know I have got some questions off the top of my head as somebody who knows absolutely nothing.
Whereas I interchange crochet and knitting all the time. I'm wearing a crocheted cardigan. I brought a knit one at the same weight. So like I do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, there's just some things that just won't occur to me anymore to be questions.
Right.
That just leaves a sort of gap because I might not address something that somebody who doesn't crochet would be like, okay, but what about this?
Right.
Which is super helpful. I compare everything back to retail. When I worked retail and I was a manager, you always had to write those closing checklists. And I always needed to get a part-timer to read the closing checklist because I would inevitably not write something into that checklist that needed to be there for someone who had never done it before.
Right.
So like I would forget a small thing because my brain goes, you just do it. So I skip that step. Whereas if you're training,
Yeah,
somebody needs to have
exactly.
that step in there. Yeah. I'm still not
Yeah.
used to this new camera. There's so much of me going on the screen. I'm like, whoa. Used to cutting off here. There's so much more going on.
So
Okay.
much more of you.
I'll get used to it. It's fine. We only mess around with the perspective a little because I've got a long line going this way and a long line going this way, and the widescreen wants to do funny things with it. So my background's a little weird right now.
Yeah.
It'll change in a few weeks anyway because there's a lot going on in my house. My background actually might not even be, I might have an entirely different background by the
Really?
coming monthly check-in. For sure by next month's check-in, but possibly by this month's check-in.
That's exciting.
So much going on.
Oh.
My sister and my brother-in-law bought a house. They take possession tomorrow. So like huge amounts of changes are going on.
So you're totally moving then?
Yeah, we're moving. We're doing small, like those little things you got to do before you move into a house. Like they want to upgrade the electrical.
Oh yeah, all the
small things you got to do when you move in. They want to paint the walls the colors they want them to be. So
Yep.
Doing that and moving them happens next week. And then I want to renovate the kitchen upstairs, which is distinctly the 70s that this ranch style house was made in.
But maybe you should just embrace that retro vibe.
I'm ready to let go of the second oven in the wall. That's been here since the house was built. I'm ready for a dishwasher.
Upgrades are good.
Ready for an upgrade. It's fine.
Ooh.
So that's gonna happen, and then I move upstairs. So like
fantastic.
And then I'll probably sell the house because this is a 5-person house. Like this is a family house. I'm one human.
Yep.
That's too much house. I don't want to clean this much house. It's too much house. So that'll go. So then it'll be upstairs and then I'm gone. How fast? I don't know. The housing market's crazy right now. We'll see what happens.
It is.
Anyway, we're going to talk crochet.
Okay.
Give everybody a chance to catch on and get on.
Yeah. So we've got Candy is here and Zakia is here and James and Sherry and Nicole. Hi, everybody. I can't say hi, ladies, anymore because James is here. Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, peeps.
So I hope everybody's got some knitting or crocheting tonight and you're kicking back. And if you've got questions for Jocelyn as she's going along, I will read them out for you, Jocelyn.
Ooh, thank you.
So what do you have to show us first?
Okay, so because I don't have any bulky hand knit socks, I don't have any bulky hand knit socks, my house slippers, which are crocheted, not going to work for a test example for everybody because they're the wrong size yarn. So I have 2 fingering weight yarns.
Okay.
Who watches the podcast will know my wonderful progress on the Easter weekend went out the window when I dropped a bunch of stitches. So I had to rip the sock out and start again. And then I got, in my left hand, I have some gray and yellow sock weight yarn, which I bought 2 bundles of.
It's pretty.
To do, yeah, it's, I don't know.
Well, it's great. It's gray and yellow. So you got me there.
That's true. It's a striped wool or Wonder Wool from Loops and Threads.
Oh, yeah.
It's Michael's yarn. Yeah. And I got 2 of them because I figured this would be a good one to just sort of, because there's not a ton of like color variation. So it'd be easier to see the stitches.
Yes.
So it'd be easier to show what I'm doing because sometimes variegated yarns make life interesting.
Yeah, a little tricky, right?
So I quickly cast it on a quick sock. I did not do an excellent increase job. We're going to just ignore the fact my foot's a little wonky. It happens when you increase sometimes.
Well, your big toe is probably bigger anyway.
It fits my foot fine, so I may honestly not change it because when I put it on my foot, which is why I like toe up socks, so then I can put it on my foot to make sure it's the right width. And away we go. So this is a herringbone pattern. It's a half double crochet stitch is what it is. And it's a free pattern that you can just find. You can find a lot of free crochet sock patterns. You'll
Okay.
find knee-high, ankles. This is just a regular one. This is my foot. It's mostly because I can do this and show it off quite easily.
Right.
It's on my hand. Not sock patterns are not dissimilar from the tops of mitten patterns I've found over the years.
It could be a mitten if you wanted to change right now.
Would be
There.
backwards for anything I'm doing that way, but yes, I
Mhm.
could. And my fingering weight sock that I'm knitting, since you can see the needles chilling off on the end here. So my crochet is on a 3mm hook. So my crochet fingering weight sock is making a sport weight thick sock, which is a slightly thicker sock than a fingering weight sock. Could I go down and make a denser sock? Yes, I simply can't see the stitches at anything smaller than a 3mm.
Okay.
That's just, for me, it's the limit of my vision. You can absolutely knit fingering weight at a smaller crochet hook size, just like when you knit yarn on a smaller needle than recommended, you just get a denser fabric. It's the same idea. You just get a stiffer fabric. My sock is on a 2.25mm Chaogu in the red lace because it's my favorite cable. So not super different, but yes, the crochet sock is thicker, and it's because crochet makes a slightly thicker fabric. I think we all know this.
We do.
I dropped my ball of yarn. Hang on, there's a cat loose. I gotta pick this up. Cat will not understand. She's not supposed to play with it.
So would you say then, as a general rule, you would always, like, everybody would go up a hook size, so you wouldn't necessarily, because you knit your socks on a 2.25mm, you wouldn't necessarily use a 2.25 crochet hook?
I'm gonna say a very dirty word, and Louise is gonna be so proud of me. It comes down to your gauge.
Yes.
I said it. Oh, I said it. Comes down to your gauge. I'm gonna say the other dirty word. It starts with an M, and it comes down to math. Oh, that's it. I said the two bad words.
I love it.
Horrible crafter right here. I'm comfortable winging my gauge sizes only because my tension is incredibly even, and I don't know why. I just take it for the gift that it is, and I move on. I know what stitch count I get at a fingering, no matter what kind of fingering it is. I know what my stitch count is going to be, and I know what fabric I'm going to get. It's probably just because I've made a lot of things. I know it for crochet, and I know it for knitting.
Right.
If you don't know, or you're newer, or sometimes your tension varies, you got to gauge swatch. Nobody likes doing it. Well, okay, maybe Louise likes doing it. I don't like doing it, but I do it because I know I gotta. Because I like to check my math, because the math doesn't lie. Gauge swatches can be finicky. I have had, because I hear people say sometimes gauge swatches lie. Well, they can. Usually I find someone's gauge swatched flat and they're knitting in the round. That changes my gauge.
Yes, absolutely. I can. Yes.
Yeah. So, like, or, they've gauge swatched stockinette, but it changes in the color work. Okay, well, that's, again, it's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
What I did is, to make it as fair as possible on the crafts, is I did a 10 swatch in crochet and a 10 swatch in knitting in the exact same yarn on the exact same sized hook or needle. So this is a 5mm needle, this is a 5mm hook. So the fabric I'm getting is going to be as close to a comparison as possible.
Okay.
Just because everybody goes, you get thicker fabric, and you do, but it's not insanely thick at the thinner sizes. So if I'm making a 2-layer fabric with knitting and I make a 3-layer fabric with crochet, my crochet is going to be a bit thicker than my knitting, right?
Yeah.
So I've got my crochet on my 5mm hook, and I got my knitting on my 5mm needles. And if I was to hold them stacked on top of each other, it's going to be a little interesting to see on the web camera, but my crochet is as thick as garter knitting because I have a garter edge.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and if you know, your garter knitting is thicker than your stockinette knitting by just a smidge. It's just enough of a difference you notice it. So side by side, the fabric you get isn't that much thicker. It's the difference between a stockinette and a garter, because my garter bump on the outside of my tiny tennis watch is the same thickness as my crocheted swatch.
Okay. So that I like that comparison. So the crochet equals your garter stitch.
Crochet is roughly equal to your garter stitch. Yeah. Again,
Okay.
barring
Yeah.
tension problems.
Right.
Tensioning is different in crochet than it is in knitting because you're holding everything different. It just is. I don't know
I like
why.
that. Okay. So that makes total sense. So for me, as a new-ish crocheter, I would definitely have to check my tension because, like you said, with socks, I know 64 stitches, a 2.25. I don't have to gauge. I can just cast on and I can go. But
George,
my
I know.
crochet,
2.25, 68 stitches, toe up, I'm good to go.
yeah.
Yeah.
But since I haven't done crochet, like I haven't crocheted anything in like a trillion years.
A trillion?
I have
That's an excessive amount of time. That's a long time.
well, probably 25 anyways.
Yeah, there's some things I've avoided for just as long. I think it's
Yeah.
totally fair.
I guess I did play around with crocheted snowflakes maybe 5, 6 Christmases ago, but
They're beautiful. Not easy though.
no, well, no.
I probably wouldn't have gone, hey, that's a great first project. I probably would have gone something a little easier.
They looked a little wonky, so
They would.
Okay, so I would have to test my gauge, obviously, just to see if I'm tighter or looser crocheting. And
I mean, you could be a very adventurous beginner crochet and do a sock. It does use a fair number of techniques. So like, even when we start knitting, most of us don't go, hey, your first project should be a sock. Most of us would gear someone towards something that uses perhaps a fewer techniques, just so that they get the hang of it. Now, I do have a girlfriend whose very first knitting project ever was thigh-high cabled socks. So like, I know people can just dive in.
Yeah.
It depends on how you like to learn. So I learned crochet by literally doing the 365 challenge, which was a different granny square every day for a year.
Wow.
It's the same year I had my abdominal surgery. So it was like 4 years ago when we started the podcast. That's when I learned to crochet. And I started every day for a year. I fell behind after my surgery, guys. I took a week off and then I caught up because I was going to be home recovering.
I think that's understandable.
I figured that was fair. At the end of the year, I had 365 squares. I still have squares I don't know what to do with. Just piles of squares floating around in my craft space. But what it did is it taught me techniques and it stacked them one at a time. So it's the same sort of idea when you start knitting, when you start crocheting. Pick a simple, easy project first. Pick something that isn't big, that isn't large, or doesn't use too many techniques because you're learning things. A toe-up sock for me uses chains, single crochets, increases. In the case of the pattern I'm currently using, it's a half double crochet. And then when I get to the heel, I got a whole bunch of steps to create a short row heel. And then I go up the leg of my sock, and then I got to crochet through the back loop to create ribbing. Since you don't get one purl one to create ribbing in crochet.
Those are questions on my list. So Sabrina,
you create ribbing. This is crochet. You create ribbing.
Oh.
A couple of different ways. This ribbing is created by knitting through the back loop only each row. So each time you turn around, you've created a little.
Okay. It looks like ribbing though.
It looks like ribbing, but it's not. This is crocheted.
Okay. That was one of my questions because I don't think I had ever seen like ribbing or something that resembled it in crochet.
There's several different ways to do ribbing depending on how you're going about it. This one for the start of this pattern, which doesn't have a pattern yet because I'm still writing it, you start with the ribbing band. So you make the length of the band for each pieces, and then I picked up and crocheted along the top of one of the bands in the pink.
Okay.
To start my pattern up this way. So sort of like the Harvest cardigan by Tin Can Knits, where you cast on your neck piece first and you make your neck piece, and then you turn the work 90 degrees, knit, turn the work, and then knit across the back of that arch that you've made. It's the same sort of idea for that one. So they're not super dissimilar. They just do slightly different terminology.
Okay.
So can be a touch confusing because you only ever have one live stitch in crochet. There's just one. So whenever you turn your work, or you're adding or you're attaching a crochet and starting a new piece, you're picking up stitches. You're just only picking up and crocheting that one stitch repetitively because there's only ever one live stitch at a time.
Got it.
Whereas knitting, you'd pick up each and then you'd have all of your stitches on your needle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're Tunisian crocheting,
So,
but I didn't want to mess that's different. That muddies the water a little. Okay, someone's like, but Tunisian crochet, yes. That's even funnier. Let's just stick with the straight hooks today.
I like Tunisian crochet. Okay, so Sabrina, I think, has asked the ultimate question that we all want to know as sock knitters.
Sure.
Are crochet socks comfortable to wear?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's no difference.
You can't. Okay. And I even think that because like you said, crochet is thicker, and even some people think about pearl stitches and knitting uncomfortable to walk on those pearl stitches, which I don't think any of us really do find them uncomfortable.
I would guarantee none of us notice if we're stepping on a pearl stitch or a stockinette stitch that's just randomly happened. We don't notice.
Okay.
Like, would we notice if we all of a sudden had a bobble on the bottom of our foot? Okay, yeah, we would notice that. That's a little weird. And patterning on the bottom of the feet, most of us don't do, because again, that can mess around a little bit with what you feel on the bottom of your foot. Your yarn overs are obviously a bit thicker than the rest of your fabric that you've made. Your yarn over knit two togethers for like lace patterning and stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, that makes sense. But when you're crocheting, that half double crochet I'm doing on both sides, like that is, there's no difference to top and bottom, and it's all an even consistency. So you're stepping on the same level of fabric all the way around. The only difference between my crocheted sock and my knit sock is my crocheted sock at a fingering weight is closer to like a sport sock.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a slightly thicker sock. So rather than saying necessarily being a wonderful shorty for summer sock, because there's no lace patterning on here, this would be a great fall winter sock. Because I can tug it on, it's a little bit thicker, I get a little bit more wool, and I get a bit more squishy between me and my shoe, which is just more padding to walk on.
Okay. That makes good sense.
Yeah. And again, if you did something where you had, bobbles or weird bumps, then yeah, I mean, that you'll be able to tell is under your foot. But if your stitch is consistent, it's going to create a flat fabric when it's done.
Okay. Perfect. There you go, Sabrina. So is anybody thinking that they would try crocheted socks? So Jocelyn, I don't know if you can see what I'm working on here.
I can see you're working.
While you've been chatting, I pulled out a 4.5 millimeter hook.
Okay.
And some worsted weight yarn, and I chained that many stitches.
Sure.
Hey, oh, we didn't say hi to Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
And she says she's loving the new camera.
Good. Everybody really enjoys the new camera. It's a lot of me, but okay, we're going with it. Let me go.
So I chained on some stitches, and I've just worked across in I don't know what stitch I did.
If you've got one loop on your yarn on your hook, and you've inserted your hook into your loops, yarned over and pulled back through, you have done a single crochet. These are US terms. UK terms are different.
Yeah.
I'm sticking to US terminology because that's pretty I'm putting my in our area of the world.
Oh, hey Anne. So I put my hook through a loop.
Yep. Yarned over.
Yarn over.
Pulled it through. So you've got two loops on your hook.
Yeah.
Yarn over, pulled through those two loops. That's a single crochet.
Okay. I'm not entirely sure that's what I did the first go around, but we'll do it this way.
What do I got going on here? Are you gray or are you pink? You're pink. Hey, where's my pink?
Okay, so Teresa said that she has a crochet book.
Yeah.
What is it? So Teresa, I'm going to go back here. So she said she's got a book called Crochet Stocking Feet by
Yeah.
Annie's Attic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There are some, you can crochet cables, you can crochet lace. There are some gorgeous crochet sock patterns out there.
Oh, okay. I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
When I am picking up a stitch, am I picking up one leg of the stitch, or am I going under both legs?
You want to go under both legs unless indicated by the pattern. Fancy stitches will have you do fancy things. Basic
Okay.
crochet stitch just has you
Both.
go through both.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Single crochet.
So what is the difference between top down and top down and toe up as far as a crocheted sock?
It'll be whether or not you're starting with your cuff band, which might change how you do your crochet ribbing or folded brim, whatever sock top you're doing, and how you do your heel construction is similar to how it works in knitting. So if you do cuff down, you tend to do heel flap and gusset, or you do, like you've got your go-to sock, but the technique is different to make a heel flap and gusset cuff down than it is when you're doing toe up heel flap and gusset.
Yes.
You just do the steps slightly differently. That's
Yeah.
what you usually end up doing. My preference has always been for toe up socks, but that's because I'm adding length in my foot of my sock.
Mm-hmm.
And because I know yarn stretches, because wool stretches, cotton stretches, and I hate baggy socks. It's a personal thing. Drive me up the wall. I cannot stand them. I should be knitting socks on like a 72. I knit them on a 68 or a 64 because I want a really snug sock.
Yeah.
That's a personal preference, but I'm adding length because if I'm making it the smaller size, I tend to find the 68 pattern goes to like a ladies 8 or ladies 9 in length of foot. Sometimes they'll do the ladies 10 in pattern. Sometimes they won't tell you that in pattern in knitting, but it's easy enough for you to go, okay, add one more pattern read or do a couple more rows. Crochet is very count your rows orientated.
Okay.
So I know for the sock that I'm making, I'm currently doing 22 rounds of half double crochets to get the length of my foot. That's going to be too short for my foot. My foot's longer than the pattern thinks my foot is. So I know I have to add in extra half double crochet rounds. Okay. So for me, making them toe up lets me put it on my foot. So I know when I'm ready to stop and prep for my heel. Just because I know I got to add a couple. I don't even have to add that much, but I do have to add a little bit. Which was funny because I was talking with one lady as a comment, and you do the whole foot for your forearm measurement thing.
Yes, yeah.
Which works. My forearms are a touch long, so my forearms are longer than my foot.
Okay.
But they're pretty close, so you can do those sorts of things. But you just sort of have to tweak it depending on what your body does.
Right.
I just tend to be a little longer.
So if anybody missed that when we were talking about that I know, because when you look at it, if you look from your wrist to your elbow,
yeah,
like that, I look at that and think, oh my God, that is huge.
Yeah.
Like my foot is nowhere near that long. If you measure it, you will find that it is pretty close, which is amazing little piece of trivia there.
Well, I love the hat measurement with the hand trick. That's handy, and that works pretty spot on.
It is pretty, yeah. And so that one, if nobody's heard that one before, again, it's the bottom of your wrist. If you're making a hat for yourself and you're zooming around on the body of the hat and you don't have a tape measure handy, you can put the bottom of your wrist right where the bottom of your ear is, and the length of your hand to the tip right about there, that's where you want to start doing the decreases for your top of your hat. So if you're knitting your hat and don't have a tape measure handy, you can just put your hand on your knitting and see if it's long enough. If it comes up to the top of your fingers, then you know you're good to start your decrease rounds. Yeah.
These are fun.
Fun little tricks. So Susie wants to know if you have a preferred pattern for your crocheted socks.
I have not found one that is like a go-to, I'm gonna make them all the time sock.
Okay.
I've made a bunch of like thicker ones at worsted or bulky weight yarn that I want like super squishy for house socks. I've done some of those, but I'm bad for repeating patterns, period. I don't think I've repeated a pattern ever. It's like, that's a great pattern. And then I just find something new. I have to chase that new all the time.
Yeah.
So I think the only pattern I've ever repetitively re-knit or re-crocheted as far as footwear goes is just the math for fitting my feet. So like I know what the recipe is
Okay.
for my width and my length of my foot. And then I find the stitch pattern that looks pretty and I do that stitch pattern, but I rarely go back and do it again. I'm always like, okay, that was great. I liked it. I loved it. Let's rave about it. And then I have to find the new thing. I gotta
And
go
move
find
on to the next.
gotta move on to the next.
Okay.
It's just I can't. Same with dishcloths. Like I can't. I
Well, that's
struggle to make anything repetitively, guys. It's like
there's
my family asks for dishcloths and pot holders, and I make them for them, but I am so bored because I've already done it once. I don't want to do it again.
okay. Oh, hey, Rachel and Sandy have joined us.
Hey,
So, oh, Sandy's working on socks. Awesome. So,
she's really awkward to show at this angle.
okay, so so Sherry says in a thicker weight yarn, oh, you would, so she's thinking in a thicker weight yarn, you would feel the stitches, but fingering weight is so thin, it has smaller stitches.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that,
I don't feel any stitches in crochet versus knit, even when you get up to the super bulky house socks.
yeah,
Because they're just it's not I'm not using like cardboard. I'm not well, I also don't use like 70s acrylic yarn our grannies used to have.
Spandex.
I use wools, I use cotton, I use silk blends, I use ones with nylons and high twists. I tend to I play around with a lot of things, but I don't notice the stitches on my arm any more than I notice the stitches on my foot.
Okay,
This
that's a great comparison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like
Okay. And
I'm wearing a crocheted sweater at a worsted weight. I don't notice the difference between this than I would if I was wearing my knit sweaters.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And there again, and then but then of course everybody has their own personal
Yeah.
preferences too. So
Yeah, and I mean, I'm also rarely running around in my super bulky house socks without little socks on the inside anyway. So like, when I'm wearing those because my feet are cold. All the layers.
oh well, yeah.
But yeah,
Oh,
for my fingering weight socks, I don't notice a difference. I do know that my crocheted socks at the fingering weight are really good for long walking days.
okay.
So maybe like really good for hiking days. Noting that I consider a long walking day anytime where I'm going to be on my feet for more than 2 hours in a stretch.
Okay.
Not over the whole day, like just in one go. Because I live in Winnipeg, guys. I'm a smack dab in the middle. Where I think I probably shouldn't be, but here we are. I chose this city. We're committed. I will walk home from the Forks, which is a pretty big tourist attraction. It takes me about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes to walk to my house in the suburbs from there. I'm not very fast. I'm kind of slow because I'm going blind. I will opt to walk home rather than bus most days of the year. The exceptions being anything over 30 degrees Celsius or under 35 degrees Celsius. Minus 35 and lower, I bus or cab. Over 30 degrees, I bus or cab because I'm uncomfortable. I'm
Yeah.
actually cold or I'm so hot it's gross. I don't want to be outside. But I will choose to walk there and I will choose to do my event there and I will choose to walk home any other time of the year.
Yeah.
So
Well,
my idea of a long walk is different than I think some people's. Like that's a hike for some people, which is super fair. If that's a hike for you, that's a hike.
yep.
I don't have a car. Don't let me drive.
So you could walk, you could do that walk in crocheted socks and you'd be totally fine and comfy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just as comfortable in my crochet socks as I am in my knit socks.
That's cool. Sherry says that maybe she's just a princess.
It'll also come down to like what kind of yarn have you used to do it? Because like sometimes when we're gifted things from our grandmothers and our great grandmothers, it's made with yarn that they know and they're used to,
Yes.
which does make a difference. Like I don't put on $4 skeins of yarn on my feet.
Yeah, that could make a difference.
So like when we're talking hand knit socks, this is a custom indie dye job. Like this was $34.
Yeah.
It's on my foot. So if I'm gonna do that, each one of these was like $12 a piece. And I needed 2 of them to make a pair of socks. So that's $24 for a pair of socks too. So it's like I don't knit with a ton of commercial yarn. This is like I've never used this yarn before, so I'm doing, but I tend to knit on fancier yarn if it's going on my feet, or crochet fancier yarn if it's going on my feet. But the same with, like, I've got this sweater I'm making now is Briggs and Little. Oops, I hit my microphone. I'm sorry, guys. This is Briggs and Little. This is about as close to like super commercial yarn other than like knit picks that I get.
Yeah.
And even then, I'm far more in love with Briggs and Little than I am knit picks.
I love Briggs and Little too.
So like Briggs and Little starting to take over my life, and I don't feel bad about that. So it comes down to what you're choosing to use as your yarn.
You guys probably, did you just hear that ding?
Yeah.
I got an email and it was from Knit Picks.
Oh, good. Are they having a sale?
I don't know. I'm thinking, are they listening in? You just mentioned Knit Picks.
Hey, listen, Knit Picks Felici sock yarn is amazing, both crocheted or knitted. It feels just as comfortable on your feet. It is beautiful.
I like
Beautiful
that.
sock yarn.
Yeah.
Beautiful sock yarn. I have some called Sally. It's named after my favorite movie.
Ah. Oh, hey, Sarah's joined us. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Oh, okay. So Susie's got another great question. When
Sure.
you're increasing in crochet, is it basically 2 stitches in one?
Yes. So to increase in a pattern in crochet, it'll tell you to we'll say single crochets. So it'll say single crochet in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the following stitch. So it's telling you to single crochet twice into that one stitch. That's how you get your increase. So your next row, that creates that V that you see when you do increases. Okay. So just as when we make one left or make one right, we're picking up one of those legs of yarn and we're making a new stitch. That second single crochet is doing the same thing as a make one left or a knit front back or a yarn over increase. It's doing the same purpose. Same way as when you're decreasing, it's in knitting, it's knit 2 together, and crochet, it'll tell you to single crochet 2 together so that you reverse the
You're kidding. How in the world do you do that?
Okay, so this is gonna be really awkward. I'm gonna roll close to the screen, guys. Everybody wanted a close up of my nose hair tonight, right? Good.
How I can't figure out. Okay, so I've got
some. This is not a good angle to do this at. Here's my little thingy. I got some yarn. I'm left-handed. Yeah. This is going to be backwards for you guys, so listen to what I'm saying, not necessarily watch what I'm doing. I'm left-handed. There's no debate. There's no question. There's no ambiguity. She's left-handed all the way. Baseball left-hand. The only thing I've ever done ambidextrous in my life is hit a baseball. I can bat on left or right, and that's it. Everything else has been left-handed my whole life.
See, I think that's pretty cool. We're both left-handed.
Yeah. I mean, my dad was it my dad? Then my dad and my mom bought me a little coaster thing that says everybody's born right-handed, only left-handed people overcome it. So I just I'm a lonely left-hander in my family. It's mostly right-handed people. So.
Me too.
So I've got one. This is my live stitch. It's the one on my hook.
Yeah.
And I've got my yarn. So say I want to do a single crochet. I will stick my hook through both legs of my crochet. So I've got both of the loops at the top.
Okay.
I will yarn over, which is super awkward to show because you're yarning over.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's a right way or a wrong way to hold yarn for any fiber crafting. However it is comfortable for you is the correct way to hold your yarn.
Yep. I agree.
I pull that yarn over through, so I've got 2 loops on my hook.
Okay.
Yarn over again.
Yeah.
And then I take this last yarn over and I pull it through the first 2 loops. I've made a single crochet.
Okay.
So stepwise, what you hear is you want to, well, now how does everybody phrase it? Pass through your stitch below. So you want to go through your yarn. It's hard to slow down because I just want to do it and be done with it. Yarn over, pull the yarn over through, yarn over. So you have 3 loops on your hook, and then pull through 2 loops.
So
it's
did you
one of those ones where it's a lot easier if it's top down because then you can actually see what you're doing.
I know. But so did that just make 2 stitches or did you decrease?
That just made 1 stitch. So say I want to increase. So we've got this stitch hanging out here next. The next one I'm going to crochet into. Say I want to do a single crochet increase.
Yeah.
I would go into that stitch, yarn over.
Yeah.
Pull back through. Pull through 2 loops.
Yeah.
But instead of moving on to my next stitch, I'm going to single crochet again in that stitch I was just working in.
Okay.
To create that extra.
So you've got a start of a.
So I have an increase.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense to me.
Decreasing.
Does increasing make sense to everybody?
At my really bad angle?
Thumbs up or yeses? I understand it, Jocelyn. So
I've had a couple people ask if I would do like Technique Tuesdays where it's like super small snippets, where it's like very pink knits, where she just that technique. There's not a ton of intro, it's just short and sweet and to the point, and that's what it shows you.
Yeah.
With the different words that are used. And I'm like, I probably should. It would probably help a lot of people. So if I want to decrease, instead of working a single crochet into 1 stitch, I'm going to work a single crochet into 2 stitches, which will magically get rid of 1 stitch. So it's a touch different, but I start with my 1 live stitch on my hook.
Yeah.
I go into my first stitch, I yarn over, pull back through. Everyone's like, yep, we're good. Got 2 loops on the needle. This is where it gets weird. We go back, we go into the next stitch.
Oh, okay.
Yarn over again. So we have 3 loops on our needles.
Yeah.
Yarn over and then pull through all 3 loops, which makes a little, I mean, you guys won't be able to see the little reverse V, but it does make, it takes 2 stitches and it makes 1 on the next row up, which is a decrease.
Okay, I get that, because I was looking at this and I'm thinking knit wise, right? And I'm thinking, how do I put my hook through 2 loops at once? Yeah. And I'm like, this isn't gonna work.
Knitting, we just bunch up those stitches and just, hey, you want to knit 3 together? Cool. I mean, it's gonna be a pain in the butt, but we can do it. In through 3 loops, here we go. But you only have 1 live stitch in crochet, so you're essentially working in the row below.
Okay, so let me see if I can do that. So I'm picking up here.
I'm just drinking my decaf coffee. We're good.
And I'm going to pull through 1. Then I'm going to go pick up another stitch. Oh my gosh. I think I've determined I'm a tight crocheter, you guys.
You might find you will discover that you might knit loose, but you might crochet tight.
That's
you might crochet tight, but you might knit loose. You might be consistent across the board. You never know.
So look, I picked up 1 stitch and I pulled through once. I picked up another, I pulled through once. Now I've got 3 loops.
Yep. You want to yarn over 1 more time. And then you want to pull through. You want to pull that yarn over through those 3 loops. There you go. You've decreased.
Oh my gosh. Do you guys, I feel like I have just done the most amazing feat. I did a decrease in crochet. Oh my gosh. Jocelyn.
It's all those ones where when you're looking and you're learning new techniques and stuff as a knitter, you're like, oh, it's so complicated. And then when you get it, you just realize everything in knitting is a variation of knit, purl, and yarn over.
I feel like I can do anything now.
Yeah. Whereas crochet is just a variation of how many loops you got on your hook. Of a single crochet is you start with 1 live stitch, you go in, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. A half double crochet is a yarn over before you go in your stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3 loops.
Okay.
That's it. That's an entirely different stitch. And all you've done is add a yarn over before you go into your stitch. So you
That's
have 3 at
awesome.
the end instead of 2.
I am just looking at this because where am I here? I can see, get this out of the way. I can see.
Super awkward at this angle.
I'm going to turn it this way. I can see my like 3 loopies here that I've
What I should have done is put my cell phone at a proper angle and had 3 of us on here and just had my cell phone on too.
Oh,
Hindsight's 2020.
oh my gosh. I feel so smart at this particular moment.
Yeah.
So, says love the decrease. I thought you just missed a stitch to decrease.
No. Your fabric is consistent all the way through. You don't get holes like you do in your knitting increases. If you knit front back, obviously it's a small hole. Make ones, there's like next to no hole. Yarn overs, there is a hole when you do your increasing. But in crochet, when you increase and decrease, unless they're having you create a chain stitch, there is no hole, because your chain stitch in crochet is what your yarn over is in knitting.
Really?
Yeah. So say I want to make an eyelet hole. I would chain 1.
Oh,
And then
okay.
I just skip the next stitch and I just continue my stitch pattern in the next one from there. Because it'll say chain 1, skip next stitch, half double or single crochet in the next stitch. And then all of a sudden I have an eyelet lace hole.
Did you guys just see my light bulb moment? Did you see the light bulb go off and she's doing, as you're doing it, I'm like, yes, I can see, oh my word.
Yep.
All these years of my crocheting, yeah, just kind of winging it. This is making, I get it.
It's comparison knowledge. Like my grandmother tried to teach my mom's mom tried to teach me how to knit for years when I was little. Nope, wasn't flying, wasn't gonna happen. Whoosh over my head. I was not ready at 12. When I picked up and started learning on my own, my other grandma gave me her mom's knitting needles and crochet hooks because I took to it when I was ready to learn it because it made sense. But I've never used proper terminology. Where's my case? Like, this is my great grandmother's crochet hook case.
Oh, I love that.
No one's going to confuse this for anything other than a little old lady crochet hook case. And I loved my granny, so I'm very happy to have these cases in my life, even though I don't use the other one for the knitting needles because they're all straight knitting needles and I don't knit on straight knitting needles. But I have them if I need them. That's the important part. In a pretty case. But I don't, unless we're talking very specific historical terms, I mash terminology together all the time because a lot of it's language discrepancies. So when you talk crochet terms, it's a whole language that's different than knitting terms. The problem is you're describing the same thing. Like a yarn over eyelet lace in crochet and knitting aren't that dissimilar. They're just slightly different techniques, but they use wildly different language.
Okay.
And that's what a lot of people get tripped up on, is that language disparity.
I think I just did a yarn or a
Eyelet lace.
Eyelet.
Yeah.
That a thing. I have to compare everything back to knitting.
Yeah.
So not a yarn over, but an eyelet.
Yeah. Because when you're making a yarn, like when you're doing eyelet lace and knitting, you yarn over and then you knit 2 together. Yeah. Because you have put an extra stitch on your needle. So you have to take a stitch away so that your numbers stay the same on row to row. When you're crocheting, you only have 1 live stitch because you're always working in the row you just finished. So when you chain 1, you just skip the stitch instead of decreasing or doing anything else, and you just continue on in pattern.
Right. So you're actually making your eyelet kind of over top of the stitch that you're, so you don't have to, so it doesn't mess with your stitch count.
Doesn't mess with your stitch count, no. Because you're just skipping the stitch where you want the hole to be.
Right. Got it. Oh my word. Yeah. I feel a whole new world opening up to me, Jocelyn.
Yep. Chains, yarn overs. That's chains, yarn overs. There's not a ton to crochet. Same as there's not a ton to knitting. It's just how they put it together. Now, guys, I will read super complex, really weird knitting charts, and knitting charts and crochet charts are whole other beasts. whole other beasts. They're wildly different.
Yes. I find crochet charts look like they're written in a different language.
It's the difference between Greek and Latin. You know you need
Yeah.
both when you study history, but my word, they are not the same. They're not the same. And I can read both, but even I have to sit there every once in a while and go, okay, what now?
Mm.
And because there's no
Well,
standardized, like we don't universally use the same symbols in either charts. That's why we have chart legends, because some people will use slightly different symbols, but they give you a little chart legend, which doesn't help any.
okay.
That it doesn't help any. You're like, what is going on?
Get
I
too far
gotta.
ahead of myself and start thinking about charts.
It's because my back of my brain is I want to pick up a shawl that I was crocheting last year that I haven't been able to finish, and I decided to take the yarn, and I can see it in the corner. It's this Zen yarn garden yarn sitting over there that I turned into my half moon tee.
Yeah.
I need to go get some solid colors. It's called the Sis Love Shawl, SIS.
Okay.
Sister Love Shawl, but it's a crocheted shawl at fingering weight, and it is massive because I love me big shawls. I don't like the hitchhiker's pretty, but I'll never make it. It's too small.
Yeah.
But the Sis Love Shawl is like 4 skeins of fingering weight yarn.
Wow, that's
And
big.
it is all charted. It is stunning, and it is so hard. And I'm gonna cast it on again this summer because I really, really freaking want it. I was working on I lost too much of the pattern in the variegated yarns. Like it needs to be a much simpler yarn color. So I was talking with my mom. I'm like, that's my project this summer. She's like, oh, I want one of those. I'm like, well, I'll start with one in acrylic and cotton for my mom, and then I'll have to make it again for myself. Okay.
So I'm thinking here. So when you did, so your sock that you started here, so
Mhm.
how do you start a toe up crocheted sock? Like, do you chain stitches?
In this case, it's a free pattern, so it's why I chose the free pattern so I could talk about it
Okay.
in detail because it's free.
Yep.
What they had you do at the start of the pattern was chain 7. And then in knitting, you work back and front, or you connect and work in the round.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you connect and work in the round and crochet. Sometimes you will crochet on both sides of your starting chain. So in the case of my sock, with my weird toe, because I did my increases wrong. Oopsies, just ignore that. No one's gonna know the end. I chained 7, and then I turned, and they have you do 2 single crochets in the first chain stitch. So I did 2 single crochets in my first chain stitch. Then had me single crochet down the row.
Yeah.
And then they had me do, I think it was like 5 single crochets on the end stitch, like on the end chain. Let's use the right words,
Okay.
on the end chain. And then they just had me single crochet on the other side of my chain stitch. So when you make a chain stitch, I'm going to do it at worsted because it's always a bit easier to see the thicker the yarn is.
So does that get you going in the round then once you've gone on both sides?
You've gone around. So normally what happens in a chain stitch is a chain stitch makes that cute little braid.
Yeah.
And you're always picking up 2 loops, but you got that bottom loop usually gets left, right? So when you come to go around, what ends up happening is you start by working at the top, but then you always end up picking up that last loop on the bottom on your way back.
Okay.
So your fabric starts to go both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah. Which is doing it in the round.
Okay.
It's one of the ways. The way most people know is the granny square, which is making magic circle loops and going up from there. Another option, it's the easier to teach option. I picked the one I wanted to do, so it was a bit harder.
Okay, but that makes sense in my brain too, though, that you got your foundation row and then you pick up around, and then you're increasing
on the ends where you would increase on your toe ends, because what you've done is that central part where you've just done the straight single crochets into your first chain. So you've done this is my chain here. I've got single crochets above and I got single crochets below. and I'm going around, my increases are on the side where you'd put your increases when you're knitting, because that's
Yeah.
the start and the end of your round. So there's your, knit front, back, knit, make one left, make one right, however you do your toe
Right.
increases. But your center part is that flat part where you would knit
Yeah.
it, except you're just crocheting it instead.
Okay.
And then when your increases get done, it does the same sort of magic thing that knitting does. Because when you're increasing, you're like, oh, this is cute, but it looks a little weird. And then all of a sudden, when you're done increasing, it just magically becomes a toe.
Yep.
It does the same thing in
Yep.
crochet. It looks a little like a weird oblong shaped thing. And then all of a sudden, you're just crocheting in the round, and all of a sudden, poof, toe. And you're like, okay, how'd that work?
So
Sure.
what would be a good stitch for a sock then? Like, would you do a single crochet all the way,
I'm obsessed with half double
double,
crochets.
or a half double?
I'm obsessed with half double. You could do single crochet. I find if I'm not paying attention, I just start doing half double crochets. I just want to half double crochet. So
Okay.
I tend to look for patterns that are half double crochets. I'll forget that I'm supposed to be double crocheting and make a half double crochet. I'll forget I'm supposed to be single crocheting and I'll make a half double crochet. What I want to do is make a half double crochet. So I tend to look for patterns that call for half double crochets, because that's the stitch I want to make all the time.
So would a single crochet make it denser?
No. No, what will happen
it wouldn't make
is
any
the
difference.
length of your stitch varies. So you won't see a ton of difference between a half double crochet and a single crochet, but you'll start to see a difference if you get into like double crochets or treble crochets. Because
Okay.
what you've done is you've made that, they're called the posts. The post stitch of your yarn is longer. So
Right.
it changes the look of your fabric.
So it's like the more times you wrap and pull through, wrap and pull through, wrap and pull through, so then
Your
the
stitch changes.
taller your post is?
Yeah. So the row that I've got that nice eyelet hole we just made in there,
Yes.
that's a row of half double crochet, but below it, those are single crochets. So that there's not a ton of difference.
No, I don't
No.
see like a huge difference there.
No. But if I do a double crochet, or we get super crazy and do like a treble crochet, I can do a couple half double crochets.
Is a treble and a triple the same? Is
Triple.
there a triple, or is it?
Yep.
It's always called a treble.
Triple crochet, treble crochet. I call it treble crochet. I don't know if it's right.
Okay.
That's what I call it. It just depends on how much yarn over you're doing. This is also not the greatest light for me to be crocheting in, but that's okay.
But also, the bigger you or the taller you make your stitch, then it's going to have more space in it. Like, is lacy the word I want to say? Or open?
It looks more open. It's not technically a lace because it's not
Yeah.
a lace stitch, but it'll look more open to you because we're used to very flat, very tight stitches as knitters. Like we're used to that single crochet look. It's not dense. The weave looks tighter is what it is.
Okay.
But when you're doing it and you're making more space, it just looks more
space.
It looks more loosey-goosey.
Yeah, loosey goosey, more space, more, it's not.
You can see in the row I just put above, I did double crochets and treble crochets. Like those look wildly different.
Yeah. Yeah, you can,
because you've got more space in your fabric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like my habanero that I knit at a bulky size on the worsted weight yarn. I got a very airy fabric that you can see through really well. Same sort of idea. It's just the longer your stitch post or the longer the stitch is this way, the more of a sort of airy look you're going to get to it. Whereas a single crochet, a half double crochet, they create a nice sort of thicker, dense fabric. I don't want to say dense. We use it a lot and it's not technically accurate. I just don't know what else word to put in there.
Yeah, tighter, less
maybe
closer.
Like again, like this is a half double crochet.
Okay, that looks pretty.
Yeah. So it's like you can't really tell the difference between where the sweater is and where my skin is.
Mm-hmm.
But it does give me a bit more breathability than say like a knit garment, which will have a slightly tighter weave.
Right.
Again,
Yeah.
depending on what you knit in. Like this is cotton. So my cuffs are turned up because I've been wearing the sweater for like 3 or 4 days now. The cotton's stretched and I haven't washed it yet. Wool doesn't get washed that often, but wool doesn't stretch quite like cotton does.
No, totally
No,
different. Yeah.
totally different.
Okay, so then so if you're cruising along on your foot, you're doing half doubles, round and round and round and round.
Yeah.
What are your options for heels? Like, is it the same as knitting? Like, can you put in an afterthought heel,
You can
a
do an
heel
afterthought
flap?
heel.
Do you do
I don't
like
know
a
about
heel?
heel flaps and gussets. I've done
Okay,
afterthoughts and I've done short rows.
okay,
My preference is afterthoughts and short rows. I'm biased towards them. I like
okay,
them. I am not a fan of the heel flap and gusset in either direction. I don't like how they feel on my feet, so I don't make them.
okay.
That also means that
Yep,
if
yep.
I've run across a pattern with them, I've just put a short row heel in. Or in the case of crochet, because there's only one live stitch, I can do an
You just
afterthought
fix it.
heel because I'm picking up stitches around the edge
Right.
where I've made the hole for the heel anyway. So yes, I think there's a way to do it, but I've always done short rows. That's just
Okay,
my preference.
okay.
And again,
And
the pattern won't leave you hanging. It'll help you through a heel.
well, that's right. If you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then
First
you
heel's
do
always weird, no matter what you do.
well,
Either one. First time you make a heel, you're like, "Am I doing this right?"
absolutely, yeah. It's always and that's always the scary part for anybody, right? Is that heel just seems so daunting, but
One step
it's
at a time. Follow the instructions.
exactly. It's not really that crazy. So then you do yeah, so then you do your heel,
Hmm. And then
your
you do
leg,
your leg length to whatever leg length you're doing.
right? What kind of how long do you typically like your sock like?
I tend to make a mixed variety of shorties, which I like in the spring and summer to wear with my
Yeah.
sneakers, and ones that go up to about mid calf so that I can put them in my boots.
Mhm.
I've just started getting into knee high ones because I walk at minus 40 degrees Celsius. So I've just started to get into the wool up the leg
Yeah.
notion. But I mean, I've also got boot cuffs. So I'm a treat sometimes in the winter. I have so many layers, it's crazy.
Oh, well, if you're walking when it's that cold, see, I was gonna when you were talking earlier about where your cutoff is, I'm like, yes, 30-degree weather, super hot. I wouldn't be walking either. And you said you would walk down to like minus 35, and I'm like, heck no, I would have cut off at minus 10,
I
5
would
maybe.
in the after times, because right now we're in the times, in the before
In the
times,
before times.
and when we get to the after times, because time is not wibbly warbly, it moves at the same rate no matter how we perceive it.
Yeah.
And I know there will be an after times. I will walk home with what is now my ex-partner, the mysterious Mr. B. He will walk me home at midnight on a Friday after a draft night at Magic at minus 30. We just bundle up and away we
Oh.
go. And it's 2 hours to get me to my current home. It'll be less wherever I move next because I'm going to be moving closer to downtown. I won't be quite so in the suburbia burbs.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, and that kind of
But
temperature and
but
that length of
yeah.
time.
Yeah. Whereas I put on my boots, I got my boot cuffs, I've got a longer coat. I'm updating my winter coat to one style that's similar to one my mom's had since we lived up north, like in Iqaluit, the capital city of Nunavut, north. Like
Yes.
north.
Or
North. So like it's a double layer fleece silk lined windproof below knee length coat that I'm making. For me, it's the same pattern my mom used 30 years ago to make her coat.
oh
I
wow.
She just this year had to replace the fur trim on her hood. Do not at me. My mother's indigenous North American, and we buy from local trappers
Yep.
once every 2 or 3 decades when we need to replace our fur stuff. But we do use real fur, so I have a real coyote to put around my
Okay.
hood. So by the time I get into all of my layers and my hand knit sweaters and I have my boots on and I'm ready to go, I'm
You're
prepped
you're
for
warm.
minus 35 weather.
Yeah.
And it doesn't affect me quite so badly because I know how to dress and I'm comfortable in that weather because I
Yep.
grew up in snowbanks 12 feet high and that cold, where 15 degrees Celsius was a heat wave.
Yeah.
And I still deal less, I'm still worse in the heat than I am in the cold. I turn into a giant child at anything over 25. And I live in a place where it's a dry heat. Like, I'm even worse when it's humid. Like, you tried to
Yeah.
talk me out of the house if it's 25 and humid. I wish you the best of luck. Better men than you have tried and failed. I have no tolerance for it. And I turn into that child that needs a nap. Like, I rub my eyeballs. I'm
Well,
grumpy. The
yeah, I
worst to
think
deal
you're
with
right. I
from
think
hot.
that's the key. You have to dress for the weather.
Yeah. There's only so far I'm allowed to strip. Public nudity laws are a thing. But I can keep adding layers, so it's fine.
And as a knitter, right? That's our thing, is just add another knit layer, right?
It's one of the reasons I made the Gabbro sweater out of that bulky yarn, because then I can have the Gabbro as my first layer over my t-shirt, but then I can still put on another cardigan or another knit sweater underneath my winter coat and be fine.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
okay,
why I
so
can walk at minus 35. I'm used to it.
okay, so back, I know we got sidetracked here. Okay, so let's go back to our socks. So now that we've got the heel figured out, so we'll just go through the pattern.
Follow the pattern for the heel, especially if it's your first time, and try different patterns till you find a heel you like. Because when it's the same way as when you're doing your knit socks. Some people love cuff down, some people love toe up, some love heel flap and gussets, some love short rows,
Yeah.
some insist afterthoughts the way to go, some are hardcore fish lips kiss heel fans.
Oh yeah.
You need to find the heel that works for your foot, and it's going to be different from your foot than it is from mine because we have different feet.
Exactly. So how do you do a short row? Like, are you wrapping and turning in crochet?
You're only got the one live stitch, remember? So you're going to knit two together. You're going to do the knit two together version. So you're going
Okay.
to crochet two
Okay.
together. And
Yes.
then on your way back up, it's like that mock short row heel we were talking
Yeah.
about,
Well,
where you cast off. It's sort of similar in the crochet. You
similar
move
to
that
that.
trapezoid, and then on your way back, you're picking up
Yes.
your stitches down that one length side to create
Yeah,
your heel shape. Yeah.
exactly.
Which is my
Okay.
preferred heel. It fits my foot the best. So,
So do
and
you
I've
think,
fallen in love with that mock short row heel. I don't think I'm gonna be doing another heel for a while because I just love that heel so much.
I want to
It's
try
harder
that.
because squishy.
See, do you think somebody came up with that from, like, they were crocheting
Entirely
socks
possible.
and then they're like, oh, well, we're doing this in crochet. Why can't we do the same thing in knitting?
It's pretty darn similar for the short row heel, from crochet to the mock short row heel in knitting.
Yeah.
It's not that far off. Again, the afterthought in the crochet is like an afterthought heel. You just crochet around and you essentially reverse engineer a toe. So you just go decreases instead of increases to get
Yeah.
to the bottom, and together and away you go.
Huh. Okay.
They're not that different. It always sort of amuses me because they're not wildly different fiber crafts. They're kissing cousins. They're so
Very,
close.
yeah.
They're
Oh,
so close to each other.
wave bye to Susanna.
Bye, Susanna.
She's running out to Costco.
Oh, hey, yeah. Have fun.
You got, oh, Sherry, Sherry, that's hilarious. So I think Sherry was left this comment when you're talking about you're layering on for your minus 35 walk. And she says, and then you have to pee.
Yes. Always go to the bathroom first before you leave your house when it's cold. Those are
Exactly,
just the
right?
rules. Them's the rules, people.
Okay. So, all right. So I like the idea of doing the heel. So the heel doesn't freak me out now in crochet
Yeah,
because
they're not that dissimilar. They're just going to be slightly different terminology,
yeah.
and it's going to be a slightly different step pattern because
Okay.
they are slightly different. So they're using slightly different techniques.
But
You're
yes, but
still using fiber and you're still making loops.
and if you've done a sock, if you've knit a sock, you've kind of got the basic gist of the form of how stuff's made.
Yeah. You might not fully understand what it is it's telling you, but as you're making it, you'll recognize the shape and go,
Right.
oh, I see what they're doing.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so talk a little bit about the ribbing then. So then we're going to go around our leg as as far as we want.
There are different types of crochet ribbing.
Okay.
I primarily rotate between 3 different types of crochet ribbing.
Okay.
And it's 3 different combinations of stitches. My favorite I use when I can create the band of ribbing separate and then start my project, because that is knitting through the back loop. For me, I find it the most satisfying. It doesn't
Okay.
always necessarily work depending on how you're making it. So like this cuff is knit through the back loop. It's like that looks like ribbing,
It does look like ribbing.
but that's just knit through the back loop. And then I
Oh,
crocheted my arm up to my
so
shoulder.
you mean crochet through the back loop?
Crochet through the back loop.
Yes. Okay.
Again, I get my terminology confused, guys.
I know.
Can you tell I've loved this sweater to death? Look how fuzzed out that
Yeah,
cotton is.
that's perfect.
It's a loved sweater. But yeah, this is crocheted. But when you're doing it and you're making it, say you're going toe up, it means I use a different stitch pattern to make my cuff collar. Again, the pattern's not going to abandon you. It's going to tell you how to make
Yeah.
ribbon
So
as you
how
go.
do you,
Sometimes you single crochet and then you double crochet in the next step, and it gets a little technical and you got to follow step by step to create that ribbed effect. You're essentially bouncing one of your crochet stitches forward.
Yeah.
So one sits slightly farther back and one sits forward, so you get that ribbed effect. So the crochet stitch that sits behind is your purl stitch, and then the crochet stitch that sits in front is your knit stitch.
Okay.
That's really all you're doing with that.
Do they actually call it ribbing?
Yeah, they call it crochet ribbing.
They do call it crochet ribbing. Okay.
Yeah, they call it crochet ribbing, yeah.
And then
Is it as elasticy as knit ribbing? No, but you don't have to worry about your bind off because it's one stitch. Because then you're done, you're just like, oh, trim yarn, pull through, weave in end.
you're right, because I was just going to ask you that. How do you?
There's only one live stitch. When you're done, you just trim your yarn, pull through, secure your knot at the end, weave in, you're done.
So you said the ribbing, the crochet ribbing, you said it's not as stretchy as knitting, but obviously it still has enough stretch that it's easy to get on your foot.
Oh yeah. No, it still has enough stretch to go. You're just not going to go and get 4 times the width of your leg like you can, because all of your stretch in your ribbing in your knit is that bind off. If you think about it, that's what we're pulling on when we pull on our socks.
Right.
That's what stops our socks from going any farther. It's our bind off that determines how stretchy everything is.
Absolutely.
Whereas when you're binding off in crochet, my bind off is a yarn over, pull through, and then I just trim the yarn and pull through, and that's it.
That's it,
because I've only got one live stitch on my hook.
Oh my gosh. This has been fantastic, Jocelyn.
I hope it helps. It's just a lot of me sitting. I was a lot of me sitting in front of the computer because I was home because I was really sick before I had my surgery. And then I was recovering from my surgery. So I was home for a lot longer. That's just how that works. So I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos figuring it out, because I was like, it can't be that different. And it's not. It's just different enough that you're like, excuse me, what now?
Yeah. It's the same but different.
Yeah. Once you get over that weirdness of the different terminology, you're fine. You'll probably know. I've been flipping terms back and forth and I get them confused because I know what they are in my head.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you know what I did a couple of weekends ago, or right after we decided we were going to do this, and I was
I'd be crocheting on my sock, but I have to look at my crochet.
Oh, so
I'm not doing that.
I bought a crochet magazine.
Hey, I love my crochet magazines. There is some gorgeous crochet stuff.
Well, you know what, this one, and I was looking specifically way down here. It has like all these big pictures, and way down here, this little tiny print, it said chunky socks.
Oh yeah, house slippers. Those winter reading socks people are always making. Well, I crocheted a bunch for a knit club one year as Christmas presents. Yeah, I love them. I own many pairs. You wear them around the house while it's like December and it's cold and your feet hurt because your feet are cold. Or Christmas morning, you have them on over top of your leggings with your ugly Christmas sweater, and there's your Christmas outfit. I've done that.
So I haven't even looked at the pattern, but maybe, you know what, now that you've went through and explained it.
And if you've got problems, like, you guys can always ask. I can help you work your way through. Like, I cast on the small socks for fun. Guys, I'm ripping that sock out because the socks I want to make with that yarn are knee-high cabled. And I'm going to crochet cable.
Oh
But I
my,
didn't want to pick
okay.
that pattern because it's more complicated. I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, I'm fine. This is not a beginner pattern. Let's not do that to people. Let's show them a beginner sock.
Well, you know, I like that. I like the idea of doing the half double.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, the
seems
half double makes a really nice.
doable.
Yeah, that's what this one is. It's just a half double. And you can tell there's no.
So you know what? Oh, sorry. You know what? I think I missed a comment. I think I remember seeing somebody asking.
Just remember, just like with your knit socks, you want them a little snug when you start because they're going to stretch because wool.
Yes, little snug.
A little snug.
Oh, I thought I saw this question, but maybe it was just me. Is crocheting a sock faster than knitting a sock?
Yes.
Okay.
Hands down. Anytime you ask the question, is crochet faster? The answer is yes.
Yes, even for
It'll
a
take
sock.
me a month to knit a worsted weight sweater. It will take me 2 weeks to crochet one without even challenging myself. It's just that fast. I have almost the whole back of a sweater and I've put maybe 4 hours in. Crocheting is faster. It uses more yarn. You use 30% more yarn. That's why when you see projects, you're like, yardage is huge. It's because you use more yarn. Yeah, that's why the yardage requirements are higher.
So that's a good question then. So a regular, like 100 gram, like 400 meters, 426 meters, whatever is in a regular.
You should be able to get a pair of ankle socks or mid-calf socks, depending on the size of your foot.
Right.
So say for me, if I want to make calf socks at my lady size 10, 11 foot, I'm using that 100 grams and there is not a lot of leftover. There's
Okay.
not a lot of leftover, but that's the same whether I'm knitting or crocheting because I use a lot of yarn. I have a very large foot. But for like my knee-high socks that I want to make, I will use one whole ball, 400 yards, because I have 36-inch legs. There's a lot of leg for me to get up to get to my knees. I'm a tall human. I got long body parts. But my mom, who's 5'4", doesn't require as much yarn because her legs aren't as long. Her foot's not as big. So your yardage requirements are going to vary depending on your body size.
Right.
Just remember that if you're knitting, say you can get 2 pairs of socks out of 100 gram skein of yarn. If you're crocheting, you're probably only going to get 1 pair of socks out of it.
Okay.
Because you're going to be using more yarn.
Right.
Yeah, because like we're talking like the Felici balls with the 50 grams. I always use contrast toes, heels, and cuffs when I have 50-gram balls because it is that tight at knitting for me at my size of foot.
Okay.
If I know I'm going to crochet it, I just buy a third ball, 50-gram third ball. And I know for crocheting at 100 grams of the mini, I'm fine. It's tight, but I can do a regular size sock. But if I want a knee high, I need 200-gram skeins.
You do. Yeah.
That's just proportionate to my body and the size of knit crocheting I'm doing. Because again, they're also not skinny legs. Like there's no spare muscle or flab on those thighs and calves. I swim 3 times a week in the before times or more for 2 hours. So like in the after times, I'll be going back to that level. So it's like the salad, there's no squishy there, but I like other places. I got some squish. Unlike other places where there is squish, my legs are not one of them. And I know that. So it's like my knee-high boots are more expensive because I tend to buy ones that horse riders use because I need the wider calf.
Right.
Yeah, so like the wide calf at shoe stores are not wide enough.
Oh, wow.
I very sturdy. They're not cankles, but I got me some sturdy legs. They hold me up. They have to. I go everywhere with 2 feet and a heartbeat because I can't drive. So my body needs to be in that kind of shape. It's fun.
Okay, so Sally's just said, oh, okay. Oh, Sally's left a couple fun comments here.
Sure.
Oh, Sally says she makes ribbing by crocheting into the back loop.
Yep, that's usually how I do it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my preference for ribbing.
And she obviously she agrees. She says crochet uses up a lot more yarn.
It does use up a lot more yarn.
Oh, okay. Oh, and James says he'll try to crochet socks by certain chain cast on, then increase.
Yep. I
And
always think if you're gonna try, do a worsted weight house sock first, because you can see the stitches.
yeah,
You can see what's going on easier, and then like go down. Like, don't make your life hard and start at fingering weight. Start worsted or
no.
bulky, make some house socks and slippers, and then decrease into the fingering weight yarn.
Yeah. Now, what about self-striping? Because Sally's saying self-striping yarn doesn't work with crocheted socks.
Works just fine.
Have you haven't had any troubles?
No, this is self-striping.
Okay. Oh yeah, okay.
Yep, there's one pattern, I think it's called, if I actually, hang on, let me move some things around because I got a lot going on here. Because of course I do. Do not drop that ball of yarn. The cat loves Briggs and Little so very much. Go there. Look, that's my TV table tray that I store stuff on and wind yarn on. All the background secrets today. Whoopsies. Okay.
So I just took a flip through the magazine here.
Yeah. I'm gonna not have you guys full size for a second.
Oh, okay.
I can see you.
So these socks in this magazine. Yeah. They're done toe up.
Yeah. Toe up is pretty common.
Double crochet.
Double crochet.
Chain one. Oh boy. I think it looks like a lot of double crochet.
Yeah.
Well,
when did I pick?
I don't know. Heel space.
So the one I cast it on because it was free and it's in 5 sizes, so it goes from a lady's 5 to a men's 13.
Yeah.
It's called the herringbone socks. So it's spelled HERRINGBONE socks.
Yep.
And she has a crochet blog post or Ravelry. So if you can't use Ravelry, you can find her site direct.
Okay.
But the socks that she's made, that she's got in her photographs, are Felici self-striping knit picks yarn.
So Sally said she's thinking maybe that the large stripes are okay. She said she's not sure about the small stripes.
Your micro stripes might be weird, but micro stripes I find are weird, period. So
yeah.
Micro stripes don't, people get excited because they're like, it's micro striped. Well, at my size foot count, they don't stripe, they pool.
They cut. Yeah.
So I mean that's a size variability in my mind.
Can you hold up that yarn again? Sally wants to know again what the yarn is. That's the loops.
Oh, the wool one.
The loops and thread, right?
Thread, yeah. This one's weird. I've never knitted it before, crocheted it before, so it's got some buzzies going on. It's the striped Wonder Wool.
Wonder Wool.
Yeah, I don't know how well my camera picks up on words.
Yeah, striped Wonder Wool.
By Loops and Threads. I got it. My grandpa is over 80 and he sends cash. So technically my grandfather bought me this yarn.
Well, that was very nice of him.
He doesn't do present shopping. He sends a Christmas card with cash. He sends a birthday card with cash. He does or checks. That's what he does. That's his shtick. That's fine.
Ooh.
I like
I want to ask Lisa just a query. So Lisa asked, "Is the book English terms?" Oh,
there is the if you bought the crochet magazine in North America, you will have US terms.
Yes.
Yeah, because US terms and UK terms are different. So if you're watching a tutorial and the person has a British or Irish accent, be careful because they identify their stitches differently.
That's a good question. Well, this might be a British magazine.
It'll tell you if it's got US or UK terms in it.
Well,
most of the ones published in North America are US terms.
This one here, I'm just looking at the price on the front of it is also in pounds.
Oh, that's fine. It just means they ship it that way.
So, but does that mean it's published over there?
No, it's probably American published if you have it. We don't get a lot of UK published things in print over here. We get some, but we don't get a ton. But yeah, if it's UK terminology, they usually identify the difference between UK and US terminology because they identify the loops differently. So what they consider a single crochet, I believe we consider like a half double or something. Like it's kind of odd.
But so if I go back here to the abbreviations, that'll tell me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll give you the guides. And they'll show you pictures. Usually, a lot of them will go through stitch guides for you in the back or have places for you to follow.
Yeah, and the abbreviations that I was reading in here, it said DC and it says double crochet.
Crochet, yeah. So
that means it's a double.
You yarn over, you go through your stitch, you yarn over, you pull through your stitch, you yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the second 2 loops.
Okay.
365 days, guys. I know me stitches in the US terms. I also made some really pretty wear.
So I'm assuming these are US terms then.
Yeah, you're usually US terms if we're printed here. Yeah. If you've bought it and it's a UK publication, it'll be like, you know, from the UK and you've bought it specialty. But if you picked it up at the grocery store or your local Indigo chapters, you're probably US.
All right.
When you talk about publications, print runs, and shipping costs, when they print in the UK, they don't ship a ton over here because it's very expensive to ship weighty things. We've all been there. Yeah. We've all ordered yarn.
I thought there was, I don't know. Oh, well, that doesn't matter. I'm not going to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
But anyways.
The terms are different, which is really, it's the peculiar thing about crochet. But yeah, if you're learning through videos, stick to an accent that's you. Like if you're American, stick to an American dialect. If you're UK or Australian, then like stick to that dialect because the majority of your books that you're getting through your local spaces are going to be published in those terms.
Okay.
With the split. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Sally, you used a 3mm hook, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. And Sherry said the hook size will be called different too. US uses letters.
Same way as US uses numbers for knitting.
Right.
If you think about it, US knitting needle sizes, UK knitting needle sizes are not the same. Jocelyn's Canadian. She strictly says in millimeters because that's the same across the board. But that's a decision I made because crochet hooks have letters instead of numbers, but the millimeters are the millimeters no matter where you happen to be. I've always just used millimeters, mostly because I'm Canadian. We function in a metric. So that is the measurement I use. I am very insistent on this. All of my sewing stuff's in imperial. We're not judging that right now. My crochet and knitting is metric. But yeah, they use letters instead of numbers. It's you just knowing US 7 is whatever size. It's the same as knowing a US G hook is a whatever size.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's too much information for me.
And we're out. The big thing is
figure that
whatever
out,
the pattern tells you, and most patterns will tell you the letter. If they're really good, they tell you the letter and the size. If they don't, just use Google Foo. I'd go, what millimeter size is a US crochet hook E?
This pattern here has both. It's got millimeter and then it's got the US. So it uses a 4, a 4.5, a 5, and a 5.5.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that is for the shaping. As you're going up the leg, you're just moving up sizes, right?
Well, that, yeah, and your cuff will be a different size than the rest of your sock. And
okay.
Yeah, some patterns, like for the one that I did, the herringbone sock, they have the toe at the larger size. So you get a little bit of extra squish at your toe. So it's like having a bit of a garter toe.
Okay.
Which is kind of nice.
I like that.
Yeah. So, and then they move you down to the smaller size in the foot and in the leg section where you want that density of your fabric.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to watch that. Yeah. So Sally agrees with you. She said she buys hooks with the millimeters on it.
Millimeters are universal.
I go with that too.
It's just so much easier because I don't know UK to US, but I know a 5mm is a 5mm. So that's what I use.
Oh, Sherry says thanks. She set off for Google.
Yeah, but when in doubt, Google foo. It is your friend.
Oh, well, that's good. So does anybody have any other questions about crochet socks before we wrap up? You covered a lot, Jocelyn.
We've been galloping through
to see all of that. And I know I definitely understand the whole process a lot better. And I feel confident now that I could pick up a really simple pattern and attempt it.
It's the same with like your first knitting pattern. You're just so nervous the first time you do it, and then once you've done it, you're like, okay, well, that wasn't that hard.
Well, and you know what? And I have no misconception this is going to be perfect. I'm sure it's going to be wonky and it's going to be whatever. But you know what? I'm just going to wear it and just be happy that I was able to do it. But maybe
knitting for years, I still screw up all the time.
Oh my gosh, how many times do I mess up my knitting?
Yeah, like I'm not going to judge myself for it. The first time I tried to knit a granny square, I made a great trapezoid. So like I just
exactly right.
It's fine.
Exactly.
All about learning.
Oh, yes.
You should see my first few cross stitches. No one's seeing those. Those are getting pulled.
I have my first cross stitches framed. I'm like, you know what? It's just the fact of trying it, right? Just going ahead and doing it, and you're always going to get better the more you do it.
If you go in preparing to suck the first time you do it, you're fine.
Well, exactly, and I know I will. But if you don't start somewhere, you never get any better.
If you never try, you'll never learn how to throw pottery on a wheel. I throw pottery on a wheel fine. First time I did it, nope. That was a hot mess.
That is hard. My sister-in-law is a potter, and I've played around with it, and yeah, that takes a feel to do that.
My kind dad in high school took my salsa bowl I made for him because the bowl didn't do so well. It made a great little short dish. This is not what I was going for. Very thick, sturdy walls and a fired clay. Like he still has that 20 plus years later. He still has that thing, and he's like, "Yes, of course he does." I'm like, okay.
Sally brought up a great point. She said crocheting is a lot easier to frog.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, dropping a stitch, not even remotely stressful. There's only one.
There's only one.
That's like, you need to pull your hook out and walk away for a while, and you're worried until you just make a really big loop for your live stitch, so like it's huge, and you just pull your hook out and walk away. It's fine. It'll still be there when you go back to it later. I don't have to worry that you dropped anything. No matter. There's only one live stitch. It's beautiful.
I'm thinking all of the pros here. One live stitch.
One live stitch.
Easier to frog. It knits up a whole lot faster.
You do create quicker with it. It's a different, it is a different fabric, but you do create it a lot faster. It's why you see us blowing through so many crochet blankets so quickly. It's because just crochet is just faster.
Just faster. Yeah.
It doesn't make it better than knitting. It's just, again, it's just side by side with knitting. It's just a different technique.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I feel like I am one step closer to actually doing some crochet projects. I don't know. I might start with something other than a sock, but
I didn't start with a sock. I started with a scarf. I started with shawls. I started with cowls. Like I started with mittens. I started with hats. Like I started with small, simple projects. And I added a couple of techniques every time. Granny squares for a year where I just learned one new stitch each day. So like one little thing at a time rather than trying to take it on all at once. Like it's the same with knitting. I didn't start knitting and then go, I'm going to make a sweater as my first project. It took a while before I got there.
Exactly. Well, that's great. All right. So just before we wrap up, does anybody feel motivated, encouraged, excited to crochet some socks now? Or is it,
Jocelyn's got to finish a sweater in 2 weeks so she can get it out to testers. Guess what I'm working on tonight?
that's what you're working on tonight?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I know. I've got a lot of things to work on tonight too. I am done work now for the week.
Woohoo!
Now my knitting week begins.
I am successfully avoiding the second sleeve on the half moon tee.
I I saw your picture with the first one and it looks great.
The ribbing turned out. So the ribbing looks great on the collar. The ribbing looks great on my sleeve, which you know what that means, right? I have to find somebody to ask really nicely to pick up the body stitches for me so I can rip out that ribbing because it's a hot mess at the hem.
Oh.
But I'm going to have leftover, I should have probably a leftover 20 grams left over of fingering weight yarn. And that's a lot of fingering.
Wow.
Which just sounds dirty, but I want to lengthen the body of the sweater. So like, I'm gonna end up pulling back and knitting more body anyway. So like I need to see who I can bribe into helping me do that because I can't do those. I'm not sure how well I'm going to be able to pick up stitches seeing as I can't see them at that size.
Yes. Well, you'll have to bribe somebody. So Sherry says, thank you, Jocelyn, for all your tips.
I hope they're helpful. Oh, I lost Louise. Or she lost me.
Oh, very helpful. Sorry, I know we're having a little bit of buffer.
It happens.
There, we've had a little bit of buffer. Hopefully it's not too bad. So James said he's just started to crochet socks. James, that is exciting.
I love crocheting. I think I made like 6 crochet sweaters last year.
Wow.
I just fly through it. I get it. I've made stuffies. I've done I did the blanket of doom. That's crocheted. That was huge because that was a queen size bed blanket made out of 2.5-inch granny squares.
Wow.
Had to sew it together. It's a good thing I love that ant.
That's a lot of work.
Oh, I'm pretty sure next month's challenge for me is going to be progress on a blanket because I want to get some bigger projects done. So I got to break them down into month-sized chunks.
Right. So Tracy says that she usually only crochets flat things.
Oh, I crochet in the round. I crochet garments. I make stuffies. I like those things. Yeah.
Now, do you find in the round easier? I find when I'm thinking what I need to try doing in the round, because when I try to crochet flat, I always end up missing that end stitch, and I start going, I get all wonky shaped. So I'm thinking if I knit, so now I know.
I did that last night. One of my edges, I was like, hello. We went sideways somewhere.
So now I always really try to make sure that I get that. I know I have to watch for that end stitch, but I'm wondering if I did knit in the round, that would eliminate that edge stitch.
It does eliminate the edge stitch. It does present that you have to keep track of your marker because your start of round becomes very important unless you're chaining up a number of chain. Like if you're single crocheting, it'd be a chain 1. If you're double crocheting, it's a chain 2 to make that height when you start the next round. And not all patterns call for that. A lot of patterns when you knit in, like crochet in the round, they just have you go around and around and around and around and around. So if you don't have your start of round marker placed correctly, you'll finish, but your work will be wonky because you're not at the right spot.
Yeah. Okay, I get that too.
Yeah, which is the same when you're knitting in the round. Hey, if you don't got that start of round marker and you bind off that body, like a couple of stitches off, you're not level. You're not even on the bottom anymore.
Oh, Lisa gave you a big thumbs up for all your tips and your help.
Sally, more crocheters, more crafters. Yeah,
that's right. Sally wants to know if you've made patterned socks.
I have not published patterned socks. I'm working on a sweater right now that'll be done in pieces, and I'm being very slow with my progress because I want an adventurous beginner to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So once I'm done writing it, Osa's gonna test it for me because
Oh,
she's
good.
like you, like she can crochet, but it's not something she's like quite as hardcore into as I am. So if she can do it and it makes sense for her, then I know I can label it as an adventurous
Okay,
beginner pattern.
good. Yeah.
And then I made it customizable. So it is done in pieces. I know you got to sew them together. Ah, the other bad word used in the crafting community, sewing pieces together.
Okay. Yeah,
But it allows for more customization for body sizes. So like
it
I'm
does.
trying to break down that math for everybody so that it's just in small chunks. So it's like,
Yeah.
here's your standard sizes and let's walk you through each of these stitch sections.
Yeah.
And and here's how you're going to sew it together. But if you need to make a slightly different front panel or a slightly different arm length or a slightly different size, like your arms are one size but your body's the other, like let's walk you through that math so
Yeah.
that way you have that base knowledge,
Yeah.
because we make a lot of assumptions
So,
that people have this knowledge and they don't.
so when you've but and you're crocheting socks, so you've done you said you've done cabled.
Yeah,
Have you done cabled patterns and
I haven't done a cabled sock, but I've done crocheted cables. I love crochet cables.
okay.
I hate knitted cables.
Oh, really?
I am not a fan. I will do them. I love the look of them. I find them incredibly tedious.
Okay.
Not quite as bad as ribbing, but I will avoid cable making if I can. I don't cable without a cable needle because, again, seeing the stitches is a problem for
Yeah.
me. I can cable, it's fine. I'm just very, very, very slow as opposed to
Did,
just very slow. And I think some of it might just be because of my vision. But if I'm
yeah.
crocheting, I only have that one live stitch. So I find the flow better on a crochet cable for myself, which is fine. I knit lace like nobody's problem. I can't see what I'm knitting, guys. Like, like my knit lace sections,
So,
I don't know. I'm winging it. I'm doing as pattern instructs. If I'm off by a stitch, I'm not gonna be able to tell the difference. It's fine. Same with my crochet
so
lace. It's just like, oh,
what about yeah, so crochet lace.
yeah. It's you're
Um
making planned holes just like you do with your knitting.
just making the eyelets
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's just a variation on
okay.
eyelets and stitch length, the same way as it is with all other laces. It's how many times do you yarn over? How many times are you, knitting in and out, front, back? You get the idea with knitted lace. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I have to yarn over 3 times and then knit 4 together. Like, okay, cool. Or knit 2 together, knowing I'm dropping 2 loops and making a bigger hole.
Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
same with crochet. It's like, oh, it's chain 3 spaces. Okay, well, we're going to be putting something in that chain 3 space. We're just not there yet. Okay, cool.
Okay. Oh, Sue says she's been crocheting for years. She crochets slippers for
Yeah.
for her family, but she says she prefers to knit socks.
And you may find that you enjoy it, but you prefer knitting them. That's
See,
fair.
and I think Sue, I'm so glad you mentioned that because Jocelyn, that was going to be, I did have that question for you. So what is your favorite way to make socks? Do you
I
prefer to crochet or knit?
I tend to knit my socks. I'm a fan of the vanilla sock.
Yeah.
I love patterns. I love looking at them. I love doing them. But if I'm doing fancier patterns, I tend to crochet the fun stuff. Like I crochet the one-off cables or the lace patterns. But if I'm knitting, I tend to just do the vanilla knit sock.
But
Noting that like a lot of my other stuff that I do is quite complicated. Like I've got a sweater design on the go. I've got a new shawl design on the go. So like a lot of my brain's already consumed with that, and I have my regular job, and then I have all my
yeah,
activism work with the disabled community and working on visual impairment awareness and helping to sort of bridge those gaps between able-bodied people and people with there's a
right.
lot going on any given day of the week. My to-do list is about 45 to 50 things long, and my vision doesn't last as long as my to-do list is. So I am constantly butting up against a wall going, okay, I'm done. My eyes are done. I can't do anymore.
Yeah,
My eyes have said, you're done, lady. You're finished. So I need those basic simple projects that I can do without looking. And I
right.
tend to do the
That makes
sock
sense.
as I want to do something, but I literally have so many wavy lines in front of my face that I can't see anything. So like making dinner is not an option, but I could sit down and close my eyes and knit on something.
Yeah. Wow.
Those nights I order in.
See, there's always a workaround for things. Okay, so Sally's saying her favorite thing to crochet is a hat. So maybe that should be my first crochet project.
Crochet, well, because you like hats, so yeah, I'd absolutely say a crochet hat project's the way to go. They're great
Sally, thank
projects.
you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, crochet hats are a great first project.
All right. Well,
And you're comfortable in Hatland. I can't get out of my sweater.
maybe that's what I will work on when I get around to doing actually trying something crocheted.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, we're getting close to 2 hours, Jocelyn.
Yeah, I've drank a whole cup of tea. I gotta go to the bathroom.
All right. Well, then that is our sign to wrap up.
It is.
So Jocelyn can go pee.
Oh, I gotta get ready for Critical Role. It's starting here shortly. So
Yes, I know. You got things to do.
things to do.
Jocelyn, I really, really appreciate this. When I had mentioned to you about the comment and you were like all game to like just, hey, we should chat about it. So this was fantastic. As I know, I learned a ton.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
Yeah, well, and I feel much more confident just having heard you walk through it, talk about the stitches. I understand how you could do the ribbing, how the heel's constructed, how you start the toe up.
Yeah.
And before it was just this big
thing. Yeah.
Black hole of like crochet that I had knew nothing about. Now I feel like once I kind of perfect my stitches and know what I'm doing, I would have no problem with a sock.
Yeah. And if you want to practice your stitches, make a dishcloth. Same with knitting.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. And it just practices your stitches.
Yes. A dishcloth, couple dishcloths, a hat, move on to a sock.
Yeah. One step at a time. You will get to the more complex thingies. You will get there.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right.
I will. Absolutely. I have no doubt. So thank you everybody for hanging out with us and visiting and all of your questions and your comments.
Yeah, I'll see you in like 2 weeks, lady. We got to check in.
2 weeks, the beginning of May, Jocelyn and I will be back with our whip progress.
Can you see that purple bag back there hiding behind the sewing machine mocking me? That's a sweater I'm supposed to be working on.
I know. I can see my orange lacy top is sitting just out of arm's reach too.
I pulled it out of the bag. Like
I'm planning on working on mine this weekend. I am not leaving it till the last weekend like I did last month.
Oh no, I need to start working on mine. I don't have weekends after this weekend because I'm helping with the move and the renos and stuff. So these are my last couple of free days, and then I am busy even by my standards.
Well,
there might be a week or two where Diana has the same number of projects I do. The running joke is, unless I'm really sick or super busy, I have usually twice as many projects every weekly check-in with Diana. She usually has like 2 or 3. I usually have like 4 or 5. There might be a couple of weeks where I only have 2 or 3. That's all I've had time to work on. All right. Thanks for checking in, guys. I hope I helped.
Yes, it was fantastic. You did a great job.
If you guys need to message me, you can find me on Facebook and message me. Like, I will reply and I will help as much as I'm able to. Like, I have no problems helping puzzle things out, and I can do Zoom calls with people. Like, I'm always willing to do that. Louise can tell you I'm game to jump on and help whenever I can.
Oh yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
So, well, we may take you up on that, Jocelyn.
It might happen, and that's totally cool. I said it was okay.
Fantastic. Good. I will remember that. Okay, everybody. I think we will wrap up on that note, and we'll come back and we'll see you next in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
You betcha.
All right. Happy knitting and crocheting, everybody.